Hey guys, welcome to Back Talk, the premier podcast from Successful Black Parenting Magazine, featuring in depth conversations and expert insights on crucial topics for Black families. We are ranked one of the top 4 Black family podcasts on FeedSpot, and I'm your host, Janice Robinson Celeste. Have you ever wondered if teaching your kids to code could be as important as teaching them to read or write? Imagine what it could mean for their futures if they were fluent in the language of technology. What doors might open for them? Well, we're going to find out after this.
This is Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine, the most listened to podcast for parents by parents.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning into Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine, your go-to podcast talk show for parents. Now, I need a little favor from all of you listeners out there. Go ahead and spread the word about our show. We are live, and that means you can post questions under this video if you're on YouTube or our Facebook page. You can just go right there under the comments and ask questions. They'll appear to me eventually over here, and I can actually put your question live up on the screen. So tell your friends, shout it out to your followers, because sharing is truly caring. And don't forget to use hashtag BackTalk when you post. Now let's get into today's show, because joining me today is Terysa Ridgeway, a former rocket scientist, now Google program manager, and best-selling author of Terysa Solves It, right? Did I say it right, Terysa, right?
Terysa
I make sure I
Solves
say it right. Okay. You tell I'm trying to make sure. But you have a STEM book series, which we're going to talk about today, and she's here to share her journey from launching rockets, y'all. Launching rockets. I am so impressed, and I love that you are a rocket scientist, to inspire our next generation of tech-savvy kids with insight into why coding, literacy, and STEM are crucial for our children's future. So welcome, Terysa. I appreciate you being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for inviting me into your audience. So my name is Terysa Ridgeway. I am a software engineer by trade and a STEM children's book author by hobby. So I've released a children's book series that introduces coding concepts to children as young as 3 years old with things that they're naturally in tune to. So, anything about the age groups between 3 and 8, there are lots of why questions. They're just trying to figure everything out. Every other word is why for them. So I'm just kind of piggybacking on that naturally inquisitive age group and introducing them to something that they could eventually use that skill set for in the future, which is computer science, because one thing that we love doing is solving problems.
Absolutely. And I need that. I need that. The kids need that. They could probably teach me. So, and you have products. So you have a coding robot, right? Can you tell the audience about this? Because guys, Christmas is coming. Okay. Christmas is coming. Talk about this coding robot. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so the coding robot actually came as a byproduct of the book series. So with the great reception that we received from the book series, doing story times and talking to parents and teachers, there were always those students that kind of stood out to them as like, okay, they were not interested in computer science or even knew what it was prior to you visiting our classroom. How do I keep those kids engaged? And for a problem solver like me, it's like, okay, how do I do that? And I know from my own experiences as a mother, I have 4 children of my own. Playing while learning is something that they naturally pick up. They're learning, they're not realizing that, this fun stuff that they're doing is actually something educational. So I wanted it to have that type of aspect. So I call it edutainment, educational, but also entertainment. So with the coding robot, I say children as young as 3 years old can pick it up, because that's where the inquisitive starts. And the first thing they'll do is probably start pressing the buttons on the robot, and that's the best way to learn. So it takes directions. So you can tell the robot to go forward, backward, left or right, do certain things that way. In addition to that, it also comes with 26 floor puzzle pieces. So kids that are learning to put puzzles together, this is a great skill set for them. They put a puzzle path down, and the robot will follow based on the instructions that they put together. So if, for example, they tell it to go forward 4 times, the robot will read the puzzle pieces and follow along, which is very similar to how algorithms works for computers to work. You give it a set of instructions, the computer follows it. In addition to the puzzle path programming, there's also an app that includes Blockly, which is block-based programming, where you can do even more customizations with the robot. You can have it sing songs, you can have it dance, you can do lots of great things that are educational and also entertaining for children.
That's fantastic. And I see the robot over your shoulder. If you guys are watching, you can see it over there. It's really cool looking. And I want to know a little bit more about you. We're going to get back into the products toward the end of the show and how to get them. So, guys, stay tuned, all right? Because I'm going to tell you how to get her robot, her book series, everything. And she's going to tell you more about it. But let's go back. Rocket scientists. How did you do this? Please inspire some of the youth out there that let them know we can be rocket scientists, please.
Absolutely. Actually, it was sort of by happenstance. I'll give you a little bit about my background. So, I'm from a very rural area in Louisiana. Both of my parents were educators. Literally, all of my cousins, aunts, uncles, anybody who went to college, they came back to their local areas and they taught. I did very well in my math and sciences. So, initially, I went to college to become a math teacher. The goal was for me to come back to my local area and teach elementary math at my school. But within, I would say, the first or second semester of college, as part of the math curriculum, I had to take a computer science course. And when I took that course, I was able to connect the dots and understand the fun stuff I was doing, building MySpace pages for my friends and some of my college suite mates and things of that nature was actually a career path that I could pursue, which I had no idea of before. So I was able to, discuss it with my parents, eventually switch my major over to computer science and learn more formally, all about that field. And in my sophomore year, I received an internship to a company called Raytheon, who works on some of the most extraordinary, tech things in the aeronautical and aerospace industries. And it was there where I first got my introduction to like air to air missiles and doing things in space. So it was like, for a country girl like me, it was like my eyes were wide open and I just learned so much. I loved everything about it. It was so different than anything I've ever known. And that intrigued me. They brought me back the next summer for another internship and another internship. And then they hired me on full time. And I spent the first 10 years of my career doing very exciting things that I never thought would be imaginable.
Wow, congratulations. And I just love that, the representation that, we have to sometimes see it to be it. So here we are seeing it. And hopefully some parents out there are listening will replay this for their kids and let them know, especially girls, Black girls, let them know you can be a rocket scientist and you can develop your own products and, thrive in this world. So thank you for sharing that. Now, let me ask you this question. How can learning to code help our kids navigate and thrive in this tech-driven world? Because we have so many parents that don't understand that the world is changing quickly and reading, writing, arithmetic isn't going to necessarily be enough. And I know even for myself, when my website goes down or all of a sudden the that drag and drop just is not working for whatever reason, I have to go into even HTML. I'm like, ugh, and I have a bit touch of ADHD, so I've seen a bunch of text in front of me. I'm like, I gotta concentrate. Okay, let me find it. Let me use find to see if I can find the word. I'm like, oh my God. So please explain how this helps our kids in this new world.
Yeah. I find a lot of great benefit. Tech is definitely the wave, both now and even more in the future. I can say, like, I consider myself kind of like a unicorn because, yes, I work in tech, but yes, I also have small children. So I understanding having a balance of tech and using tech for good, especially with the younger age group. But I think there are lots of healthy ways that it could be introduced and a lot of benefit, like you said. I'd say, for example, for my two youngest, they're both 6 and 7 years old. So even between that age group and my older two, there's like lots of changes that have happened in tech between the two age groups. So I'd say for the younger two, even having like voice assistants, like Google Assistants, Alexa, being able to formulate a question, I've learned how how great of a critical thinkers both of my youngest children are based on I would actually count it up to the assistants. Like they can ask the assistant a question. Like one earlier this morning, my son was like, what's the longest word in the dictionary? Like just anything you want to know, like encyclopedias. Our grandmothers and mothers would tell us, go look it up in the encyclopedia, but now they have all of this information. So like how can you use it to like pique your interest? So he asked Ted, what's the longest word in the dictionary? So now he's trying to learn that thing. But sometimes he'll ask a question and he doesn't get the answer he wants. So he has to formulate a different question in a way that the assistant can understand so that he gets the answer that he wants. And I even see just those little subtle things, how they approach their homework, how they approach friendships, honestly, how they approach me if they're not getting an answer that they want. Maybe I should think about this a different way. The funny thing I told someone yesterday is like we had Halloween candy and you could tell they wanted more. But it was like, I've been brushing my teeth twice a day for the last 2 weeks. Is it okay if I have candy now? So it's like just understanding, almost kind of like just reading the room. Like, how do I formulate this question to get an answer that's acceptable to me?
Okay. I can relate to that with Chat GBT.
Yeah.
So you don't ask the right question, you don't get what you want, and then you're re-asking and you're, formulating it differently. So absolutely. And if you guys are out there and you are familiar with Chat GPT, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, so what is the best time to introduce coding and the best age to introduce this to our kids?
I personally, I started introducing around 3 and 4 years old. Once they're walking around, that I feel that age group is one, it's so sweet, but it's also they're just trying to figure out the world. Like it's like this whole brand new world and they're just trying to figure it out. So subtly introducing small things. My older two, I introduced them to a block-based programming called Scratch, which is very popular. But what I noticed was by doing Scratch, I was literally having them at the computer. They knew they were learning something. With the robot, which I feel is comparable to like learning Scratch and things like that, is they'll start playing with it as it's a toy, and then they will learn that way. So little subtle things of like little robots or a doll or just talking to an assistant. Those things are all great things, like hearing little kids talk to Alexa and asking questions. Can you play Baby Shark? That's all great introductions and even understanding how those things work.
Well, they can work these things better than us adults, right?
Yeah.
So they're good at it. So that's good. And the other thing that I like about your robot is not just a screen. Like we worry about screen time. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was one of the biggest things going into like researching of how do I introduce this to a market. I wanted one to have something where you didn't need a screen for, because I know how screen time, like a kid can stare at a tablet or iPad all day if you let them. I wanted to have the ability to both be using the ability to have a screen and without a screen. So with the puzzle based programming, they're thinking, they're not using any tablets. They're truly developing an algorithm, which is what a software engineer does to get things to work. How are all this text on our screen right in front of us? How is my video showing? Like a software engineer had to actually program those things. So you need time to actually think before you act. And I think that's a great introduction to do it without screens. But once you become a little bit more understanding of the technology and want to, increase your excellence in developing code, then you go to the block-based programming. And then after that, you're ready to code, because what block-based programming does is takes out, I consider, the frustration of programming. Some of the, like as you mentioned, the HTML for your website, sometimes it could be something as simple as a semicolon in the wrong place or a parentheses in the wrong place that throws everything off. So it takes all that frustration of having the appropriate syntax in your coding so that you can just do the work. And once you get that mindset, you're ready for coding.
You don't have to tell me. I've struggled to find what was wrong. One little thing can throw everything off. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But at 3, how can we do this in such a fun way that it's engaging? I know you mentioned the puzzles. I like that idea. But this is even probably even a little younger than 3, isn't it? Or the puzzles, is that age appropriate for a 3-year-old?
I wouldn't say the puzzles would be, but the robot, and I actually have one behind me. If you give me a
Okay.
second, I
Yeah,
could
yeah,
just.
grab it, grab it. Well, guys, we're going to get the robot. It was super cool.
And mic back on here. Sorry, this is live, but I just have to show it. So this is the little robot, and it has lots of different functionalities. So I would say for the 3-year-old, the buttons here at the top, you can see it's like forward, back, left, and right. There's a button here for music, and then it also tells bedtime stories. So you give this device to a 3-year-old, starts pressing all the buttons. That's the best thing to do. They press the forward button, it starts moving up. They make that association that, okay, this button does something. Okay, what does this button do? The back button, it does the same thing. A lot of the kids like the music, so you can change the different music. Let's see if this one is charged up. And it'll make a little.
Oh, that is adorable. And it looks like a ladybug. It's cute.
All right. And so with that, they probably, the first thing, music, right?
Nursery rhyme.
So it'll.
Fairy tale.
That is adorable. Now, is that a computer generated voice or did you have someone model it? It is
It
computer
is
generated.
a computer generated voice, but that's also a great question. So for 3-year-olds, that's where they would start. It's all computer generated, all coded in here. Similar to like if you have an infrared mouse, there's an infrared sensor at the bottom that reads the code that's embedded into the puzzle pieces. So that's how it knows where to go, even if you change things up. But one of the things that, because the robot did so well when I launched it last year, I was trying to think of how could I include some form of AI to the market as well. So within the next few weeks, we're at the very final stages of manufacturing a think like a computer doll, and I don't have it with me because it's on a photo shoot right now. A think like a computer doll with AI capabilities. So it has a large language model already embedded, and it answers questions as if it was the character from the book. It's a problem solver, and it's based on the questions that the kids have. So we talked about assistants a little bit earlier, and it does basically what an assistant does. You can ask it questions about anything.
So that kind of reminds me of like an Alexa or something like that, right? But it's a
Yeah.
doll.
But a kid-friendly one,
Mhm.
and absolutely safe. As a parent myself, I made sure it was very safe. One of the things that was the breaking point of whether I was going to do this or not, it was safety. And I know with like a lot of the assistants, they're always listening, but with my doll, that's something that I would not want. So the only time it listens to you is if you press the button, it waits for your question, and then it does that. It's no, hey, doll, can you answer this question? And
Got
that's
it.
a very safe thing, I feel, for kids. And that was like kind of like my non-negotiable about whether I could do it or not. I went through about 3 or 4 different devices to test out to see which one could be the safest, which ones could do all the things that I wanted. And I'm so glad I finally found the one. And I really wanted it to be ready to go by the beginning of November in preparation for Christmas, but it will be closer to the end of this month, is what I'm hoping. So I think next week I should start getting the first shipment in.
Congratulations. That is exciting. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to see it. Make sure you send us pictures and everything once you get them back. I want to see what this looks like.
I
That
absolutely
is
will.
exciting. So 3-year-olds, they start learning coding from pushing the buttons, and they learn, basic directions and how to command the robot. So I got it. Okay, I just want to make sure, because when you say coding, I'm thinking we're typing like backslash, parentheses and certain things.
Yeah.
So awesome. So that's great. All right, fantastic. So how can we as parents help to foster the growth mindset of children, especially when it comes to subjects like STEM, that might seem intimidating, especially for us? And I'm asking mainly for us. So we might be intimidated. How do we help our children if that's the case?
Yeah, I would say any type of device that has a learning capability that says like it's STEM related, I would always start there because usually a lot of those things have a lot of research behind them. But I would say, honestly, as a parent, being supportive from a distance is the absolute best way to go. And I didn't realize this until someone asked, well, actually, it was my kids because they always like to know what things were like in the 1900s because I was like a million years old, right? They wanted to know, like, okay, so because I told them I didn't have a computer when I was their age. It's like, you didn't have a computer, so like, what did you do?
No
So it's like, and
concept.
actually, that was the very beginnings of how my book series came about too during the pandemic. They're just so intrigued, like, what? Like, you didn't have an iPad? What about a cell phone? Like, you couldn't wait. You had a cell phone in college, but you couldn't take pictures with it. Like, they think that's the most archaic thing ever. But it was kind of my first introduction to computers. My mom, as I mentioned, was an educator. So we didn't have a computer in our home in the early 90s, but she had computers in her classroom. So she was able to bring her classroom computer home over the summer, and that was like my very first time interacting with it and things of that nature. But my mom, being a mom, she was like, yeah, my kids love this in class. So if you want to play with it, go ahead. And she literally put it on the kitchen counter. And here's me, 7 and 8 years old, trying to figure out, okay, how did I turn this thing on? Like literally, you wouldn't do this nowadays. I wouldn't do it with my kids, but figuring out which plug goes in where. If you remember the older computers, there were lots of different plugs and outlets and things of that
Hmm.
nature. So literally, my sister and I were figuring out how to plug those things up, how to get it to turn on. There were floppy disks. Like, how do I do this thing? But she let us figure it out. It took us a while, maybe a few weeks or so, but once we got it, we were playing Oregon Trail and Carmen San Diego and all of those things. So looking back, now that I am an engineer and a lot of the things that we're solving for have never been solved before, what she did was actually the right thing to do, letting us figure it out. But just like she couldn't necessarily guide us because she didn't know either. So it's just being supportive, like, oh, when you get it, the kids played all kinds of games. So it's like, how do I get this thing on so I could play these games that the other kids were playing? So I would say the most supportive thing a parent can do is introduce them, not
I love that.
necessarily like try to teach them. Like you can learn on your own, but letting them figure it out is the better thing to do whenever you're talking about problem solving.
And they will figure it out. That's the
Yeah.
thing. Absolutely. Now, are there any simple activities that we can do at home to get children excited about STEM, even if we don't have a tech background?
Yeah. So similarly to, I always go back to the puzzle pieces because I feel like out of all the three, that's my favorite because it's very hands on. But
Mhm.
there are things that you can do like in place of the puzzle pieces. You can actually be the puzzle piece. And that's in my second book, To the Moon, I kind of talked through that because I was building an app for a rover to travel on Mars or something like that. But what I had to do was like, okay, dad, turn 2 steps to the right. Mom, go 1 step up, and things of that nature. Just simple directions. But one of the other things I've also introduced that kids are doing on their own is just thinking about things that they're doing naturally. Like, oh, like I'm from Louisiana. Cupid is like our big celebrity, and he made the Cupid shuffle. So I like to say how much dance is a routine. It's the same routine that you're following for an algorithm. If you do the Cupid shuffle multiple times, you're doing it in a loop. So, and that's similar to how computers do algorithms. So you can tie it together with
Mm,
lots of everyday things. And I find that's the best way to introduce it to kids.
I think that's a great idea. So basically, you're the robot, and they're giving you the directions,
You
and you
are the
have to
robot.
follow. And that will just tickle some kids, you know.
Yeah, and
Now,
I've actually start animated series on YouTube where I actually use the Cupid Shuffle as one of the examples for loops. And there's another one where I teach about conditional statements like if this happened, then this should happen next. And I use, lots of different things. I'm trying to think of other ways to just introduce it in ways kids can understand. But yeah, definitely a YouTube series as well.
great, that's fantastic. Now, your books you have a main character, a little black girl. Can you tell us about her a little bit behind you there?
Yeah. So this is the character Terysa. She's modeled after an 7 or 8 year old version of myself. Very inquisitive, very sassy, likes to figure things out. Very, very nosy, actually. That's one of the acronyms the people would describe me as. But just trying to figure the world out. And in the first book, it's the day before her 8th birthday, and she has this inkling that they're planning a surprise party for her. Her parents are planning some type of surprise. Everyone's being weird, and just being very weird when she walks into the room for different things. And what she's doing is she's using all those clues to figure out that somebody's planning a surprise birthday party. And what I'm doing as the author of the book is showing how just picking up those clues is problem solving. Um, and putting all of that together into this spunky little character throughout the book series is how I introduce her, because I feel like a lot of kids can relate to that, especially like you mentioned, little black girls, like things that were very intentional for me when developing this character and working with the illustrator, like her hairstyle, the balls on the top of her head. I wanted fluffy socks, but it just didn't work out. But knowing I wanted to be there, the puffy dress, because I know there's also that narrative that like girly girls are not like in STEM and things like that. But like you don't have to be a certain way to be in STEM. I think it also feeds that false narrative that you have to be a certain way. So you could be whoever you are and you can also be included in STEM. I consider myself to be very girly girl. When I was a kid, I loved pink. When we talk about MySpace, my MySpace had diamond stripping and things of that nature. So I actually like very girly things, had a large Barbie collection, but I still love STEM as well. So I just want to kind of like dispel of that narrative too within this character.
I'm glad you did. And for those of you who don't know what MySpace is, get off of our page. Get off
You're
of
not
our
welcome here.
page. You're young. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, talking about that, what role can representation in STEM books like yours, media, and toys play in boosting our children's confidence in pursuing technology careers?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think honestly, as soon as a kid, a black girl, but like honestly, everybody likes the books. I've had like every race, every gender, and they're like, yeah, they love the book. But it's something so very specific when a little black girl picks up that book and it's like, is that me? Or like, she looks like her friend that's sitting next to her. Like those things are honestly like driving. And it's like I literally have chills now because they can see themselves in that. And I think it's very important not just for black girls to read this book, but for everyone, so that if you see a little black girl and she's very smart in class, that's not a crazy thing. Like
Love that.
that is very common. And I want to help build that narrative as well.
Well, you are. You absolutely are. Now, I've heard of programs like coding clubs or online like coding platforms that they work. And are there any that you know of that are designed specifically for children of color?
I'm not aware of any specifically for children of color. At one point, I was thinking of it. but it would take some time and definitely some manpower. But it was at one point I was starting it up, and then like the book kind of took off on its own, and it was like a lot bigger than I would have ever imagined it to be. But in the future, if nothing exists, and
Right.
I wouldn't mind taking that up because I think that would be beneficial, especially as technology is rapidly evolving.
Well, I could see you would be the perfect person to do that. Now, what about any scholarships or grants or things like that for kids? Because I know our parents are going to ask. We're worried about cost. We're in an economy where everything's expensive. So, do you know of anything like that?
I know that there's a big push from like all the top companies. There at one point with the White House, with the Department of Education, there was like this really huge initiative to work with like all the top companies, Google, Amazon, yeah, everyone, really pushing CS education for all. So I know that there are some resources related to that. I'm not things how things will shift now with the U.S. Department of Education, but I know at one point, even as late as early last year, there were lots of talks about that.
Okay. Now, you've been in this field for a while.
Yeah.
What unique challenges do specifically Black people face, perhaps in pursuing tech careers? And then how can we help overcome these barriers?
Yeah. One of my really big, I would say almost an initiative of why I wanted to do this, or like backstory of why I wanted to do this, was exactly that. I feel that there's a lot of pressure on the few of us that are here to do everything correct and by the book, because if you don't, you kind of limit the chances of anybody coming after you. So I've honestly had a manager years ago tell me that, oh, wow, you did such a great job in this role. This is our first time ever having a Black woman do this. Maybe we'll try it again sometime. And like initially, like I
Oh,
know it was meant to be a compliment, but it's like that's one of those things that I feel that have stuck with me since the moment he said it. Like as I think about it, it feels like it just happened yesterday. And it's like, as much as I was like, I felt like sting from that, I was like, I wonder how many other people think that way, you know? So it's like, I feel that gave me the push I needed to, like, okay, unrealistic expectations on all of us. Like, we have to be great, but hopefully we introduce so much greatness out there that it's like, there's no other choice, or there's no just, oh, this is the first Black person to do this, or this is the first woman to do this. Like, we all have an equal chance of being great and showing our greatness.
I agree. I always say, when we're hungry, you give us a chance, we're going to make it great. We're going to make it great. We just
Yeah.
need that opportunity, that door to open. Sometimes we have to kick the doors down, but once you let us in, it's our responsibility. It's bigger than us, right?
Yeah.
It's our responsibility to make sure we do the greatest job we can and leave our mark. So, like you said, the next person that comes along won't have it as difficult time to get in.
Yeah.
And I think people don't understand that they have these stereotypes in their head. But when a person's hungry enough and you let them in, a Black person, they're going to shine. They're going to
Yeah.
shine. So be
Yeah.
ready for it. That's what I tell you. Be ready for it. Don't get mad. Don't get jealous. Don't feel like they're going to take your job, because they're just there to make sure they do a great job.
Yes.
So it's probably the best hire you'll ever have. Now, let me ask you this question, because I want to know. I heard a lot of things that you said about why you do what you do, but being a former rocket scientist, now STEM advocate, what drives your mission to make tech accessible for kids, especially our kids?
Yeah. Great question. I would say honestly, it's the kids' enjoyment. I feel that the more and more I say this, because I always told my parents and my sister that was also an educator, I couldn't see myself in the classroom. Like, I'm just not naturally a teacher, but I guess I am naturally a teacher. And it's like she says, you always say you're not a teacher, but you're always in the classroom. And I think she was absolutely right. Like, it's something so special about seeing the joy on kids' face. Like, honestly, I have 4 children. I have a full-time job. I have a husband. I have lots of responsibilities. So it's like, it doesn't feel like an added responsibility with this STEM thing, because it's like, no matter how rough of a day I'm having, if I go to a story time, like the excitement on the kids' faces after is like that drives me to do the next one and the next one. And it honestly was a passion project for me that turned into this whole purpose. Like I truly feel like I could do this for the rest of my days if given the opportunity to.
Okay, I can relate. This is our passion project, so Black
Yeah.
Parenting Magazine. So, yeah, keep going. Just keep going. Even when times get hard or tough, just keep going. Keep your mission in mind. Now, I want to ask you about the robot in the back because that one looks different from the one you showed us. Is
Yeah.
that for older kids? Is that what it is, or is different?
So that's one that I'm testing out. And when I say testing out, I have my own personal test group in my house.
Okay.
So that's one that I'm testing out. It has AI capabilities as well. I feel that it's a little bit, I'm trying to figure out what age range it is because, it's a really cool thing, but it's not something that I'm ready to release at this moment. So we're
I
still
see.
testing at this
It looks
moment.
very cool. Does it walk or does it stay
It
still? It does.
walks, it dances, it's basically though, like you see the screen of it, it's very large. So
Mhm.
it's basically a tablet with a robot shell. So you can download apps, you can talk to it as if it's an assistant. It's kind of buggy though. So we're trying to figure it out and see what we can update and see if it's something that we eventually want to release. But as of right now, it's not a product I sell.
Well, I'm so excited to see your empire grow because this is fantastic.
Empire.
Empire, your empire. Yes, I mean, it's an empire. You embrace that. It's your empire for sure. And the fact that you find so much joy in it will take you even further. So just keep
Oh, thank
reaching
you
for the
so much.
sky there. Well, finally, where can parents go to find out more information about your work and resources to help their kids get started in tech?
All right. So you can visit me and find me online at my website, www.terysasolvesit.com. And I'm on all social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Terysa Solves It.
Well, I'm going to say goodbye because we're running out of time, but I want you to stay in the back room here so that I can tell you how to get the video after we're done. Okay? So hang in
All
there.
right.
All right. And I want to thank all of you guys for joining us today. A big shout out to you guys tuning in and engaging with us here on Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine. I know I always see all the comments later, like on Instagram and YouTube. So thank you. We'll be back next Thursday, live, same time, same place, where we will be discussing autism and empowering Black parents of children on the spectrum. So tell a friend to tell a friend and join us. And be sure to follow us on social media. Click on everything, guys. Follows, like, ads. The more you engage, the more we all can thrive. All right. So until next time, I wish you all the best and much success. Goodbye.
Thanks for tuning in to Back Talk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine. We'll see you soon.